Hey Guru Nation, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru. Thank you very much for coming to the YouTube page. So today's question comes from another potential client. We've been biz deving like crazy. That's business development for those of you that don't know. Just a fancier way of saying sales. Today's question comes from someone who's a potential client opening a site, asking questions, a lot of questions naturally. And this one's about PI, Principal Investigator, time commitments and requirements. And this question is always interesting because there is no real answer. If you go to 21 CFR, which is the Code of Federal Regulations for Clinical Research, Good Clinical Practice, there is no specification that says a principal investigator must be a full-time employee of the research clinic. They need to be there 40 hours a week. There's nothing like that, okay? It's very vague, but they make references to having oversight. The principal investigator, no matter whether they spend 1 hour a week at the clinic or 100 hours a week at the clinic, they need to be demonstrating that they have sufficient oversight over their studies. And what does that mean? Well, you got to keep up with patient safety is number one. That's the number one priority, okay? You got to keep up with adverse events. You got to keep up with the protocol. You got to make sure that your staff is executing and following the protocol appropriately, following good clinical practice the way it's mandated, okay, in 21 CFR. So that's oversight, looking at lab results, looking at ECG results, looking at ConMeds, looking at side effects, looking at inclusion-exclusion criteria. The PI needs to have their footprint on the study. And that includes progress notes at every visit. That includes regularly, meaning within a day, one business day, of a lab result coming in, the PI should review them. Submitting SAE reports to the sponsor and the IRB. So what the FDA is saying is however long you need to ensure that you're doing all this stuff is how long you need to be at the clinic. There's no rule, there's no guidelines, it's just you either have sufficient oversight or you don't. It's binary, okay, one or the other. You either have the appropriate principal investigator oversight or you don't. Yes, you can delegate to all your staff. Yes, almost every PI does that. Almost every PI I know has a study coordinator. If you're opening a brand new clinic, naturally, if you're the doctor, you're interested in knowing how much time is required of you. Well, it's vague and it varies. You just need to have principal investigator oversight. If you're an entrepreneur opening a clinic, obviously you want to know how much you need to pay a PI. Do you need to pay them to be at your office 40 hours a week? Thankfully, you don't. So you can probably pay them a percentage of the overall study budget as you get compensated, or you can put them on a monthly retainer, or you can put them on a monthly salary, or you give them equity in your company. There's a whole number of ways to partner with and pay a principal investigator, compensate a principal investigator for their time if you're the site owner. Paying them to be at the office from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They can do that and still not maintain adequate principal investigator oversight. So you don't need to spend your money making sure that an MD is always on site. You just need to make sure that they have adequate PI oversight. So that's the time commitments and requirements needed. Now, I love being practical. I love being realistic. For your first study, the PI won't need to be there at all until you start enrolling patients. I mean, if you want the truth, that's the truth. Yeah, they'll probably need to be there for the site selection visit, to meet with the monitor. Hopefully they're already there if it's their office. They're seeing patients in their private practice. But as far as getting involved with the research, they should be looking at the protocol. They should be taking care of the initial regulatory documents, signing regulatory documents, delegating duties to different staff members, so who are the sub-Is, who are the coordinators. These are things that can be done in a matter of hours. Okay, this is the initial regulatory paperwork that is done before the site initiation visit. Then they'll need to spend about an hour with the monitor at the site initiation visit. So far you have an hour at the site selection visit, roughly an hour of regulatory prep that the PI's time will actually be needed. That includes protocol review, delegating staff. Training staff might be a little a little more time if the PI is actually doing that. Another hour at the site initiation visit. So before you have your first study, or just on your first study, so far they've only spent like 3 to 6 hours on the trial. So the real time commitment is going to occur based on the volume of patients that you're enrolling at the site. So once you start enrolling and randomizing patients, and then the patients start taking the study drug, right, the PI needs to be more involved. They need to have oversight. They need to have their footprint all over the source docs. So if an auditor from the FDA ever comes, there's no doubt that the PI is involved because his or her signature is on all these forms. They're reviewing things properly. They're submitting things in a timely manner. There's very few protocol deviations, if any at all. There's no GCP violations. That's the PI time commitments and requirements needed. Hopefully that helps. It should be good news for most of you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and reach out to me anytime. Thank you. Take care.